The watch hype is over, waiting lists are almost dead except for a few exceptions, and the watch market is once again a market for enthusiasts. How wonderful. But there are a few brands that still seem to be stuck in 2021, where every watch brand simply sold itself, and other brands that apparently just haven't found their true selves yet. I do spend a lot of time in Facebook groups and forums and stuff about watches, and I also receive dozens or even like hundreds of messages from you guys on Instagram or via email and here on YouTube every day. And summarizing what I read from you today, I'm going to present you the worst 6 watch brands at the moment and what they could do to turn things around. First watch brand was founded in Switzerland in 1875 and has an incredible history of watchmaking, especially in the 19th and early 20th century. This brand was known for precision and innovation. They introduced the very first minute repeater in 1892, which is basically a mechanical watch that makes a noise. If you're still not sure which brand it is, you'll surely know with the following information. In 1972, so it's the 70s, this brand actually, one could say, saved the market for mechanical watches by introducing the first real luxury sports watch, rumored to have been designed within a day by Gerald Genta, the greatest watch designer of all time. You know which brand it is now, right? Of course, it is Audemars Piguet. But what's the problem with Audemars Piguet? Well, in itself, nothing really. The watches are great. The Royal Oak is still, visually one of the most well-known and popular watches. And yet, the brand has one problem: overburdening that comes off as arrogance. It started about mid-2021 when Audemars Piguet announced that they could no longer sell through authorized dealers with multiple different brands. No, from now on, only in boutiques directly to their end customers. This not only upset the dealers and former partners of Audemars Piguet, but above all, the customers themselves. And then with the Ukraine war, among other things that came, the crash of the completely inflated watch market, Audemars Piguet was right there at the front. And the result, well, tons of negative reviews from people when visiting the boutiques, unfriendly or condescending treatment, and Audemars Piguet's attempts to force customers to buy unpopular models to get the actual popular stuff like the Royal Oak. All this has led to where AP is today. Many have turned away from the brand, and as someone who knows some watch dealers, I also know this: not only have the Royal Oaks and all other APs dropped drastically in price. Additionally, overall, a few people are buying an AP and instead opting for, for example, a Patek instead, even if it is more expensive. But I think it's not too late to turn things around, and I think what needs to happen is that AP needs to get off, its high horse and start treating its customers and, potential customers in a way that makes them feel, important, seen, valued, and not like a doormat who should be grateful to spend 30,000 or more on a watch. The next brand was founded in 1865 in Le Locle in Switzerland and is now part of the LVMH group. This brand has a tradition of, watchmaking and received awards for its movements, especially in the field of chronographs. The peak of this was in 1969 with the creation of the first chronograph movement capable of measuring tenths of a second in the first integrated automatic chronograph movement, which is why it is also called the El Primero. Zenith became even more famous as a long-time supplier of movements for none other than Rolex, because until the early 2000s, the El Primero movement was installed in every Daytona. And I will get to why this is so important in a minute. In addition to the El Primero, Zenith has always been known for the Defy line. These watches are, with these aggressive designs and very unusual looking movements. Examples include a chronograph that can measure hundredths of, that's a difficult word, of a second, or the Defy Lab, in which instead of a balance wheel, an oscillator is used. These are, all cool innovations that have characterized the Zenith brand together with, the unmistakable designs. Unfortunately, though, not much of that is left today, and it all started with the Chronomaster Sport. This watch was introduced by Zenith a few years ago, and at first glance, something is immediately noticeable, right? Exactly. The watch may not look identical, but suspiciously similar to a Rolex Daytona with a ceramic bezel. And now opinions are very much divided. Some say Zenith is totally fine to do that since, they supplied the Daytona with a movement, for a long time. But others say, no way, the Zenith does not look the same as the Rolex Daytona. And then you've got the others saying, yup, that's basically a one-on-one copy of a Daytona, purely visually, of course. But what I think is even more bothersome is that the watch itself also has a few issues with its quality. So the bracelet and clasp of an 11,800 euro watch are simply not worthy of that price, and I think most people will agree on that with me. And in recent years, things have continued in the same way. Also this year, Zenith is again introducing new models. This time they look suspiciously similar to the Royal Oak chronographs. That's, just a shame, because Zenith actually had a completely different target group and very distinctive designs and innovative movements. They've got everything that they needed, and now you feel like you're just getting one homage after another. And it feels like you're just trying to push, through the maximum sales by doing that the mainstream or, the market supposedly wants. So short term, this might be a strategy that works. But I would say in the long run, in the long term, it is exactly what destroys and, dilutes a watch brand. Everyone copies from everyone and no one does anything new anymore. Do you know the oldest watch brand in the world? It was founded in 1735. It's absolutely incredible. And just to put that into perspective, that was more than 50 years before the French Revolution and more than 100 years before the founding of Patek Philippe. So that's just boggling my mind. In between, this brand in the 20th century was known, among other things, for ultra-thin movements, and then, people aren't really 100% sure about this, perhaps the first real dive watch, the 50 Fathoms, that was in 1953. During the quartz crisis, Blancpain then resisted making quartz watches as one of the few watch brands, and they still advertise that to this day. Very proud of this. However, back then it also resulted in a decrease of sales, and Blancpain got themselves into serious trouble. The production had come to a stop until in 1983 when JCB, Jean-Claude Biver, along with Jacques Piguet, bought the brand for only 22,000 Swiss francs. It turned out to be an amazing deal for them because Biver and Piguet drove sales up to, I think it was 50 million Swiss francs per year by 1992, then sold the Blancpain brand for 60 million Swiss francs to the Swatch Group, to which it still belongs to today. Biver remained CEO until 2003, and then, honestly, no idea. What happened then? Since then, we haven't heard anything or much from Blancpain somehow. That changed in 2023. So last year, Swatch released a plastic watch called the Bioceramic Scuba 50 Fathoms as a tribute to the Blancpain 50 Fathoms, and temporarily brought, Blancpain back onto the radar of the entire watch community and beyond. The problem is just, since then, nothing else has really happened. I think there's, untapped potential here, and maybe it would need someone like Biver again to take the brand under his wing and then bring it back to its former glory. Because otherwise, I still see the oldest watch brand in the world continuing to gather, dust and invisibility. And, that would be a real shame, wouldn't it? So I would like to play a little guessing game now. Which brand made this watch? And how about this one? Or this? And what about that one? Think about it. Is it Patek Philippe, Jaeger-LeCoultre, something like that? No. Okay, let's continue as to how the watches of this brand look today. So which brand is this? And attention please, this is the same brand, all of the watches. Did you recognize it? Of course, it is Roger Dubuis. One really has to wonder what the hell is happening here? What happened? How did it go from here to this? And please don't get me wrong, watchmaking wise, what Roger Dubuis does or is doing is amazing. For example, they are the only watch manufacturer whose entire production can bear the Genevan seal, but still, I wonder, who is the design intended for? Especially with, such highly complex movements, I would expect something, a bit more elegant perhaps, a bit, of a competition to brands like Patek Philippe or A. Lange & Söhne, for example. But to spend 300,000 on a watch like that, crazy. I don't really know who is supposed to do that or wear this. If any of you have ever bought a Roger Dubuis, please feel free to comment in the section down below. I would really love to hear this, because here too I have the feeling that something beautiful was taken and somehow completely turned upside down just to be, or for the sake of being unique or special, just for the purpose of it. And sometimes I think it's enough to just make something beautiful and stay true to your own style and just stick with it. Okay, but let's continue. What do you think of when I say the following things? Watchmaking made in Germany, Glashütte, incredibly beautiful decorated movements. Oh yes, you're probably thinking of A. Lange & Söhne, and rightfully so. A. Lange & Söhne has been one of my favorite watch brands for ages. I find their, very strict German design language paired with the incredible movements just simply beautiful. And yet, I probably would never buy one, at least, not anymore. And from what I've read in forums, in groups and everything, it seems that I'm, on the same page as some long-time Lange collectors here. So what happened? Well, basically the same thing as with Audemars Piguet. A. Lange & Söhne started about 4 years ago with the Odysseus, taking away the end customers' business from the, let's call them the multi-brand jewelers and long-term partners. and particularly selling the coveted models more and more, themselves in their own boutiques. And with that, the same circus started as with Audemars Piguet. So you want an Odysseus, impossible for a new customer, and even as an existing customer, extremely difficult. But well, why not buy an 1815 or a Lange 1 Rolltimer? We cannot promise anything, but the chances are definitely better if you do so. For example, you can read this right here, where a longtime collector of the A. Lange & Söhne brand describes how he was put off by Lange for years, even though he had already bought about like 43 watches from A. Lange & Söhne, which, 43, that's insane. But yeah, artificial scarcity and marketing aside, in my opinion, a customer who's already spent millions must still get any desired watch within the shortest time possible. And heaven and earth must be moved to make that happen if you're that dedicated of a collector. In this case, the customer waited for years and kept buying things he did not really want, just to end up not getting the watch despite, the double price increase in the meantime. And exactly that, in my opinion, ruins the best brands. Marketing, okay, fine. Scarcity and waiting lists, especially for new customers, totally fair to a point. But trying to sell a little something on the side for coveted models, absolutely understandable to some degree. But especially when you push it to the extreme and show your best customers literally that you do not care about them, then I think, in my opinion, that fundamentally is super wrong and destroys a brand. So let's talk about Rolex now, shall we? Rolex is currently one of the worst watch brands. And let's not get it twisted here, it is not about the quality. In terms of quality, Rolex watches are still right up there, especially in terms of, everyday usability and, craftsmanship and the whole entire package. But Rolex's new releases remind me a bit of my birthdays now. You keep chasing that magical feeling of the anticipation of the night before your birthday. And when you wake up in the morning, it's just, another day like every other one. And that's exactly how Rolex feels right now. But, that's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is, in my opinion, we all know damn well that Rolex listens. What have we been wishing for from Rolex for years? Well, a few things, but two examples are, first, a GMT with a coke bezel, so the black and red one. And secondly, a full gold Submariner with a green dial and a green bezel, a golden Hulk. And what does Tudor release? Exactly, a GMT with a coke bezel and a golden Black Bay 58 with a green bezel and green dial, both with slightly different colors than what Rolex fans would have expected, but close enough. And that's great in itself, beautiful watches, well done Tudor. But Tudor is a Rolex after all, and that shows Rolex listens very carefully and consciously decides not to do what Rolex fans want. Instead, this demand is used to sell more Tudors. It's shifted. And Rolex dealers, it's mostly still the same as it was 3 years ago. Eternal wait times, watches are impossible to get according to Rolex dealers, and even, a fully gold Submariner with a retail price of about like 40,000 is, according to the Rolex dealer, a huge stroke of luck for the customer if they get one, even though you can get them brand new on the grey market for at least like 5k cheaper immediately without having to wait. And that might be the biggest problem here. Rolex dealers still often treat their customers like fools. The market has evolved, the hype is over. Selling obviously always had to be done the right way, but now they can no longer get away with what they were doing a couple of years ago or like even months ago. And above all, watch enthusiasts have never been this informed and mostly know the market quite well. So it is rather sad now when you go to a Rolex dealer and the salesperson tells you about a 5-year waiting list for a model for which you hardly have to pay more than 500 extra on the grey market, then a list price, and then the salesperson knows this too. They're not allowed to say anything else, otherwise they'll get in trouble with the boss. So what could be done better here? Well, either Rolex drastically reduces the number of pieces again to make the watches truly coveted and rare, or they simply stop pretending with all the models as if it were like a gift from God, when you can spend tens of thousands of euro on them, and instead focus, on the watches themselves again and limit waitlist times to the models that actually have an excess demand. And here we have it, 6 of the currently worst watch brands in the industry. If you have similar experiences to what I've just described, let me know in the comments down below. If you want to watch more watch related content like this one, I suggest subscribing to my channel and hitting the like button on this video. And if you want to watch another watch related video right now, I recommend this one, and then I will see you in my next video. Bye.